Hi everyone, it's Angela from Stamp with Angela. Thanks for joining me today for my Facebook Live, and I'm looking forward to sharing with you part 2 of some dry embossing techniques. So if you were here last week, you would have seen the 2 cards that I made involving dry embossing. So dry embossing is using a embossing folder and putting cardstock or something inside, putting it through a embossing machine, and then it gives a nice textured image on whatever you're embossing. So if you remembered last week, I embossed some cardstock and then I also embossed vellum, and I gave you some tips on using the vellum so that you don't see the adhesive when you are adhering it. So if you missed last week's one, you may like to go back and have a look at that either on Facebook or on YouTube. So today we're going to be doing part 2. So I've got 2 more cards for you. The first one is the same kind of style as last week, and this time I'm going to dry emboss some foil. And the second card is quite different, completely different stamp set, different colors, and that is embossing a stamped image. So as you see those, you'll get the idea of what I'm trying to do. So I hope you find today's video useful, you learn some tips, and maybe you give it a go. So a few weeks ago, I also shared a technique to do with heat embossing. And heat embossing is when you use Versamark embossing powder, heat it, and it gives a nice, shiny, bright image and things, usually like an outline. So that was one of the first techniques I tried when I was new to card making. So that was heat embossing, and so that's probably one of my favorites. And even, well, I've probably done card making for a good 20 years, but over 10 years as a Stampin' Up demonstrator. Heat embossing is still one of my favorites. I love doing it. I love seeing the image melt and stand out with the embossing powder, and you can get a range of colors for that. And one of my other favorite techniques is today's one too, and that's embossing, but a completely different style of embossing, and that's dry embossing. So that's using your embossing folders. So I hope that you will enjoy today's cards, that you will, get a few tips and give it a try. So with the dry embossing, you do need to have a machine of some sort to emboss. So I've got the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. So you've got the standard one, or you've also got the mini, and I'll explain a little bit of that as we get started. So thanks for joining me today. If you've got any questions, please comment, and I'll do my best to answer as we go, or if not, I'll answer later. And if you're watching this later, of course, please feel free to comment and ask questions. And if you're watching this on YouTube and you enjoyed it, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. So this is today's card. So don't you love the shimmer of this wonderful foil paper? So it even sort of, picks up the light and things. So we have a variety of foil papers and things. They do sort of change from time to time. But if you are looking in the current catalogue, so this is the current annual catalogue, which goes until April. You'll see some of the different foils and things here. We've got rose gold, brushed metallic, silver foil, and then your standard copper and gold. So the one that I've got today is the silver foil. There's your standard silver, which I've got this one here. And then this one here, there's kind of a brush finish, a mirrored finish, and a matte finish. So this one here, can you see it's sort of a different kind of look? I'm pretty sure that it's the silver one and not the rose gold. So that is on page 139 if you're looking at different foils, and there's a range of colors there for you to use. Okay, so yeah, I don't know if you can kind of see, this was the first one I did silver, but I actually like, because of the fresh freesia, that sort of other coloring to it. So last week we stamped this and I colored it, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time going over that today. You're welcome to look at last week's video and see in detail. I'll just quickly show you a couple of things. The main thing is making the card, and then I've got another special, completely different card for you. So I've got here my foil and my embossing folder. So this embossing folder is a narrower one, so it fits in my mini machine. So my mini machine is this one here. And this is a 3D embossing folder. So for my 3D embossing folder, I use, look on here, but where does it say? 3D embossing folder. So I need a 1 plate, which is this, then my folder, and then a 4 on top. So I'm going to put my Stampin' Up image on the top with the foil facing up like that. Just make sure it's not too right up the top, but then not too low either. Now with this one, the best thing to do is put that on like this, make kind of an E shape, so you've got a bit of a gap in there. You don't want them all together because it'll be hard to go in. So just push that middle one back, push it in, engage it, let it click, and then hold up here, and away we go. And this is what we get. There we are. Whoops, we've kind of slid things around a little bit. I do find sometimes with the machines it's quite good to put a silicone mat down. That helps it kind of hold into shape as well. All right, so it does curl up a little bit. We'll just curl it back a little bit. So this was 6.5 by the length of the cardstock. And like last week, where is my piece gone? I'm going to adhere it onto a slightly wider piece of, this is Awkward Oasis, and that Awkward Oasis is the height of a card, is that, yes, and it is 7 centimeters wide, and my piece has gone missing, so I'm just going to quickly cut another like so. So you've got a slight gap at each side, so let's glue that down. What I'm going to do is, because it tends to curl up a little bit, I'll let it press down from it. I'm going to put a couple of punches on top to give it some weight. There's another one. Is there another one handy? Yep. It'll just help that adhere. While we do that, let's stamp this out. So like I said, I did do it last week, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. But basically, we are going to use the Dainty Delight, which is this one here, and this is the stamp set that we are using. Which is the stamp one, which is the biggest one. And I'm just going to stamp it with Memento ink and then colour it with blends. So last week I used the Stamper Artist. Today I'm just going to use it on a normal stamp pad. Press it hard, firm, particularly in the middle because it is a big stamp. Beautiful, and then I'm going to colour it. So with my blends, I've got Fresh Freesia here, and I'm colouring it like so. And I'll just do a couple and add a bit of the dark to kind of blend it in a little bit. So we'll do all those, and then I'll come in with my Old Olive and colour in my leaves. Okay. So with the magic of the video, there is a finished one. Then I'm going to use the die to cut it out, which is here, like so. And I've just put a little bit of removable tape just to hold it into place. And then the magic of video, there we go. It's cut out, ready to go. Okay, so while we're stamping, we'll do our sentiment too. So I've got a little happy birthday. No, that's not happy birthday. That is a thank you. So on a little piece of scrap. Now I've used Awkward Oasis, so I'm going to stamp in Awkward Oasis. And my thank you is from the Wildflower. It's got a nice happy birthday and a nice thank you. So like so. And then the die that, you could just cut it with scissors. The die that I'm using is this one here, which is from the Something Fancy. And then I've cut out another one in the colour. And then I'm just going to put them together. All right. Putting my card to, and look, here I have one that I prepared earlier. So the important thing to remember is before we put this onto our card, is we need to put our ribbon around. So the cards I made last week included the woven ribbon in the Okura Oasis, which was like this. And initially I couldn't find it, so I went with something else, and then of course later I found it. But that's all good because I can show you a tip with this. So this is the Fresh Freesia, and it does stand out against that, which is quite nice. On the card that I made when it was embossed in Fresh Freesia, it didn't stand out, so that's why I used the other colour. So you'll notice this is quite a wide ribbon. So what I've done is I have cut it down the middle very carefully to make it narrow. So I need a piece that is slightly wider like so. Oops. And then this is the tricky part, but just cut it, and even trickier on camera. Does not have to be accurate, just neat like that. Okay, so I don't know how well you can see that, but it just makes it a little bit more dainty. So we only need half, and then I need another piece for my bow. So I'm just working out kind of the length, cut it off. And again, this is a little bit harder because it's longer. We are going to cut down the middle. Now, I don't know if you can see, but these scissors have got red tied on them, and these scissors are only used for ribbon, because I find if you go ribbon to cardstock or paper and back to ribbon, then it kind of makes them blunt and they don't cut so well. So these scissors are reserved only for ribbon, and that way they're nice and sharp. Okay, so now what I need is my card base. And in case you don't know, I have a sheet of A4, and what I usually do is I actually score it down the middle first at 10.5, then I cut it in half at 14.85, and then I've got, oh, you probably couldn't see the measurements, 2 cards ready to go, and I've only scored once. So that's my little trick. And then what we're going to do is put that on. But remember, before we can put that on, we have to put our ribbon on. So using a little bit of seal, we are going to put this across the bottom and up a little bit so that we've got room for our sentiment. Okay, and then seal or glue, up to you, put it on. So you will notice, if you saw me last week, well, the glue does not want to come out. This is the same layout of last week's cards, which I'll show you shortly. So, but I'm using foil instead. Okay, whether you tie this on now or later, it's up to you. But I like to thread it through, tie a knot, try and make them sort of even, and then make a bow. And some people find tying a bow easier than others. There we go. All right, dimensionals, and we're nearly done. So I like using the mini ones on this because I need a few to spread around, like so. And you will notice that with the blends colouring in, that it does show through. But that's okay, we're not going to see it. But just bear that in mind if you're colouring on something thinner, or if you are colouring on an envelope or something like that. I'm going to pull these off and glue it down. And then I've got another exciting card to show you. Very different, using the same technique. All right. There we go. So that is stuck down. And our sentiment, the only problem with dimensionals is these little things go everywhere, but that's okay. There we go. Is that pretty? I love that colour. Beautiful. And you can inside stamp and colour, or oh, I've got one that's, no, they're all coloured. Somewhere I have one that's not coloured, but anyway, probably this one. There we go. You can leave it black, just stamped. All right, so for the sake of time, I won't do the inside of this one, but you get the general idea. Okay, so this is what we made today. So I'm going to show you all three now. So this is dry embossing foil. So remember, you can dry emboss in foil. Last week we dry embossed just cardstock, and that's why I used that ribbon, because it needed to stand out against the fresh freesia. And then last week we also did the vellum. So there's three different ways to use dry embossing. So cardstock, foil, vellum, and there's other things as well, but that's just to give you an idea. So it's the same layout, same stamp set that I've used, but they look, you know, quite different. So hopefully that inspires you and gives you some ideas too. So for my second card, I'm going to go for something quite different, and it's this one here. So we're going for not pinks and purples anymore, but some more neutral colours. I've got green and browns. Actually, I'm using quite a few different greens. And at the moment, I seem to be favouring vanilla, but a little bit softer. And it looks quite nice. And then I've also stamped inside. So in case you're wondering what stamp set I am using, it is not a new one. It's been around for ages and I love it. So it's this Forever Ferns. And there is a die set which goes with it as well. So not that I'm using it today. So some of them are just dies on their own, and then some of them cut out some of the images that are there too. So this is one that's in the annual catalogue. But and I used it for coffee and cards earlier in the week, which is what inspired me to make today's card. So this is what we're going to do. So stamping the background. Now I don't know how well you can see, so I'll try and zoom in. Can you see the texture on here? So what I have done is I've stamped and then I've dry embossed afterwards. And that just gives a texture to it and just makes it look a little bit more interesting. So that is the technique that I'm going to show you now. All right, so what I need is a scrap piece to work on. Because we're going to go a little bit over the edges. So very vanilla. So I've got my card base, which is a standard half size, 14.85 by the width 21, scored at 10.5. I've got old olive, 10 centimeters by 14.3, and then very vanilla, 9.5 centimeters by 13.8. And I've actually got two of these so that I've got one for the inside as well. Right, so the colours that I am using are a few different shades of green. So I've got, well, to start with, not a green, soft suede. I've got my old olive, which is one of my popular greens that I like to use when I'm doing leaves and things. And then I'm also using garden green. Whoops, you can't see old olive. Okay, this is the old style ink pad. Right, so actually we'll keep that out because we'll need to use it soon. So what I did was I stamped a couple of brown, then a few leaves, and probably need to mix up that colour a little bit more. But that's all right, all trial and error. So we're going to start off with this leaf first, coming from the top and coming up from the bottom. So like that perhaps. Now bearing in mind, oops, can you see it? I've got my sentiment here, so maybe we'll do it a little bit more to the side so we don't kind of miss it too much. Then I want my bigger one because that takes, you know, a bit of room. Where is it? We will use it if we can find it. I have just made the card. So where did that particular stamp go? Have I buried it? Oh, here it is. So on the cleaning, on my stamping scrub, because I cleaned it. So we're going to do old olive, and we're going to have it coming from the side. While I'm here, I'm going to do one for the inside as well. What I might do is go to garden green, and then I'll come back with the last one, and we'll do this kind of stamp. We'll add a little bit in here, maybe a bit down there and there. And then we'll come in with our last smaller one so it can kind of fill in the gaps. And I'm going to go back. We need something there too, don't we? Maybe I'll go back and do another brown just to break it up a little bit. There we go. And then we'll fill in any gaps, but not too much with this one. We don't want it to be too busy. So it's just finding that balance. All right, so this is the technique part. So what I'm then going to do is get my embossing folder. So this is the Timeworn Type one, which I love because it's quite subtle. It's got the stamping up on the top, and I'm going to put my image in, not right at the top, just down a little bit. So just remember what it looks like when it's smooth, and it's nice, but look what happens when you add a bit of texture to it. Okay, so this time, because of the size, it is a big one, I'm going to have to bring up my big machine. Put that there to stop it sliding a little bit. All right, so it's a 3D embossing folder. Sorry, I know it's very close to the camera, I don't know how. So put it in, put it on the top, and wind it through. Sorry, you don't really want to see my hand. Okay, there we go. And ta-da! Here we have, now isn't that cool with the embossing? Now obviously when you stamp it, every card's going to look different because you're going to arrange your leaves and things differently. So you could put your twine on now, just to, because this is a little bit thinner. I'm actually going to adhere it onto here first, and then I will put my linen thread on. Okay. Of course I pick up the glue that's got the least amount in it. All right, so that gives it a nice border. And we're going to put some of this around. So good old technique, as I always do. Put some tape down the side. And we go backwards and forwards. So tape it down, go across, bend it back. Go across. I like to cross it over at the front too, 3 times. And back we go. Cut it off. The last one didn't stick down, so we'll just stick that down. Is that still okay? Whoops, no. Need to make sure you're going to stick. There we go. All right, so we can put that on the card front now. Now this one, I made crumb cake. So I wondered if it, was a little bit dull. So I thought we'd try this one with soft suede, so it might stand out a bit more. You can tell me what you like. And it probably doesn't help that the work table that I'm working on is also. Okay, time to swap glues. Oh, this one's a nice new one. But I just got to get it. Oh, look at that. Life is so much easier. Okay. Whoops, but we don't want to put it upside down. That would not be good. All right, there we are. Beautiful. Now one trick that I forgot. Before we stuck it down, what I could have done is cut this out, the middle of this, before we stuck it down. I'm not going to do it on the inside one because you write it and it's a bit bumpy. So I'm just going to use a scrap and cut one out. And I'm not going to use my ribbon scissors. I'm going to use my other scissors. And I'm going to cut it in half, like lengthways, like so. And we need to stamp our thank you. Okay, I'm going to use Old Olive. And that. And punch it out. Probably a slightly longer piece would have been easier to hold, but that's all right. We'll just make it fit. Now I let it grip a little bit and then push it all the way down. Okay, so what we'll do is we're going to put a bit of glue on. Oh, that's my old one. Where's the new one? Bit of glue here, bit of glue here, and this frames it, which is cool. I went through a phase of doing this lots. I haven't done it for a while, so if you haven't seen this technique, so decide how much you want to show through, and then give it, doesn't take too long, but just to set so it doesn't keep moving. You've got a moment to sort of adjust it, line it up, put it aside. All right, there we go. So let's do our inside bit while we let that dry. So we're just going to put these layers together. Oh, new glue, wonderful. And inside. And of course, if you were using or with your envelope, you could stamp that too, and then it's all kind of matching. All right, and what we're going to do is put a couple of dimensionals on that. You could use big or small. I'm actually going to put some small ones on either side, then it won't kind of get in the way of the linen thread that's there. Oops, I got two. That's all right, we'll just do it like that. Okay, and then we just need to tie a bow. Oops, up the right way is always good. Okay, and linen thread, where are you? Right in front of me. Okay, so let's tuck it under. And I'm just going to guess the length. I'm going to move those away so they're not bright and shiny in your eyes. And there we have it. So this technique with the dry embossing is stamp your image first, and then once you've stamped it, then put it in an embossing folder and put it through your machine. So there you go. So what do you like? Let me put it against white behind so you can compare the two. So this is with a crumb cake background, a little bit more subtle. This is with a soft suede background, a little bit more prominent, I guess you could say. Which one do you like? And then if you look closely, there you go, you can see that texture too. So it looks very cool. All right, so 2 techniques today with embossing. The first was to use foil, and we got that kind of look. And then the other was to stamp something and then put it through an embossing folder afterwards. And remember, if you missed it, last week's techniques, we embossed cardstock and we embossed vellum. So there's lots of different ways with dry embossing that you can try. So remember, there are different size embossing folders. You've got your narrow ones, you've got the square ones, and you've got one in between, and they're also different thicknesses as well. But they give a lot of interest and dimension to the cards. So there you go. So I used the Dainty Delights set for this card, which you can find in the mini catalogue. Remember, at the back you've got like an index of bundles that are available. So there it is. And then you've got the stamps that are available, the dies that are available, or the papers and punches that are available, and other embossing folders and accessories and things. So that's in the back of that. So that is the mini catalogue. So it basically goes through the end of April, I think to the 1st to be precise, until the 1st of May. But do remember that as catalogues are coming towards the end, it will only be while stocks last. And the other one finishing at the same time is our annual catalogue, also finishing end of April or 1st of May. And if you want it, so this has obviously got a lot more stamps and dies and things in it. And it's also got, in the middle, or slightly after the middle, our colour ranges and things, or there's our adhesives. I'm trying to find our colours somewhere. Keep looking. Is it before or after that? I think I missed it. here we go. All the colours and things that we have. And we've got 4 groups, or 5 really. We've got in colours, which are 5 colours that last for 2 years. We have brights, we have neutrals, regals, and subtles. And then your basics, white, black, and vanilla. So just to let you know that when the new catalogue comes out, there is going to be what's called a colour refresh. So these colour groups might get mixed up a little bit, and they might take some less popular colours, less trending colours out, and put some new colours in. And they might be ones that were in colours in the past that have come back. So it'll be exciting to see what the new in colour collection will be for 2023 to 2025, and then also what kind of colours they mix up and, you know, take out and bring in. So if you've got a favourite colour that you really, really like, and you've got the ink pad, then you might consider getting the ink refills now while they're still available in cardstocks and things. And then once it's revealed on what's going, I imagine those colours that are going will get snapped up quite quickly. So if you don't happen to have a copy of the mini catalogue or the annual catalogue or either, then feel free to get in contact with me. I'm happy to send those out to you. If you don't already have a demonstrator, I'll try and put a link in this video later, or just message me, and I'm happy to send those out to you complimentary. Make the most of the last couple of months that they're here. They've got lots of great products and things in them. So if you've got any questions about any of the cards I made today, today's cards, or last week's cards, or the catalogues and things, please feel free to get in touch with me. I enjoy sharing these videos and these creations with you, and hope they inspire you. And I look forward to seeing you again next week. So thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.